Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. All right, it is official. They worked late last night and early this morning. Agents involved, hurdles finally crossed and eclipsed. Jim Harbaugh is the coach of the LA Chargers. It is easily the best current job available in the NFL because you have Justin Herbert. Now, I talked about this recently. Next year, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence, Dak, Jalen Hurts, Caleb Williams, Derek Carr potentially could all need a coach. This year, 7-8 openings, one elite quarterback, Justin Herbert, who again, as a rookie with the 32nd ranked offensive line with the Chargers, his rookie year, he broke all the touchdown records for a quarterback. So since then, he has been undercoached and undersupported. I was told last night, a lot of people, when I go out in the South Bay, Manhattan Beach, Hermosa area, there's a lot of people down there that are connected to both LA professional football teams and both college teams. And there was an understanding, there was a real buzz last night that this was going to get done. Some thought it was going to be late last night, but most thought it would be in the morning. So when I went on the air today at FS1, I thought it was going to probably break during the show, and it was a few hours after. But I have it confirmed now, 3 sources outside of the Chargers operation, that it's Harbaugh. It's interesting with the Chargers. They have 51,000 season tickets. There's no question. They don't want to sell out SoFi because because it's a warm weather city and people in their division, Denver and Kansas City, in their AFC schedule, there's a lot of cold weather teams. So they like visitors coming, and they can, move those prices up based on how hot the Chargers are and how hot the visiting team is. So they'll never completely sell out the stadium, but they'll go to 55,000 season tickets. Harbaugh will sell 3,000 to 4,000 season tickets here in the next week. And so the Chargers are a very healthy business. SoFi is a revenue monster. It's an absolute revenue machine, among the very best. I think it is the best in the National Football League. So where the Chargers were viewed as a team that, was on the thrift a little bit in San Diego, they don't need to be anymore. They paid for Bosa, Khalil Mack, Justin Herbert, and now they're paying for Jim Harbaugh, and a brand new facility in El Segundo, which is not far from SoFi Stadium, for those who have not been to Los Angeles or don't know the geography there. I'll get to Michigan in a second, but this was the right choice. It is the best current job available, and you very rarely, when's the last candidate that eventually became a coach that was a sure thing? Matt LaFleur was respected as a coordinator. There was no sure thing replacing Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy going to the Cowboys, he had a Super Bowl, but that was not a sure thing dealing with Jerry Jones, and it hasn't been a sure thing. Jim Harbaugh is about as sure thing as you get. Even Belichick, if he went to Atlanta tomorrow, there's no sure thing. They don't have a quarterback. Vrabel's a great coach, goes to Washington. What if they pick the wrong quarterback? This is a sure thing. Harbaugh's worked everywhere and immediately, and this is not a terribly heavy lift. Sean Payton at Denver is a big lift. This isn't. They have some cap issues, and they also have, one of the top picks, which they don't need a quarterback or a left tackle or an edge rusher. And that's what is all over the top 20 picks in this draft. They could use a tight end. Brock Bowers will be available to them. They could probably move down 2 or 3 spots and still land Brock Bowers and get a 2nd or a 3rd round pick. What they need to do is hit on some draft picks beyond the 1st round. It's a very strong draft. So the first 15 to 18 picks are really good players. After that, the percentages go down. But Harbaugh's ability to know personnel because of the last decade at Michigan is going to be incredibly beneficial. This is not a big lift. That you got to move off probably a Khalil Mack, You get more for Bosa, but he's a little fragile, but they'll probably keep Bosa, I would guess, move off Khalil Mack. They may move off of Derwin James. Not sure what they do with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. But what they need, they have what the draft is furnishing at the very top. So they have the ability to move down several spots and accumulate more picks. And Harbaugh will crush it with his picks. The other thing is they don't really have a situation where Dean Spanos is not a meddler. He's really not. Now, you could argue in San Diego, they had a small staff. They didn't spend enough money. You can argue they were cheap. I don't view them similarly in Los Angeles, and he's not a meddler. There's Spanos kids are in the building, but again, on the operational side, Tom Telesco had free reign to do what he wanted to do. Tom's a good friend, never badmouthed the Chargers, loved his job, wishes he wouldn't have missed on J.C. Jackson, but he furnished Harbaugh with a lot of good players, and now they've got a really good pick. So this is really a perfect situation and a very easy lift. Hit on some draft picks. This is not Tennessee or Atlanta or Washington or New England or even Denver, where you had a quarterback but a massive cap hit. Herbert's still a year away from being a punitive cap hit. They are about $45 million over, but again, you can circumvent some of that stuff by hitting on draft picks and moving out a couple of players. I think Harbaugh is just a very unique personality. I've said this before. Both Harbaughs you can't pigeonhole. John Harbaugh knows offense. Jim Harbaugh knows defense. When Harbaugh was in San Francisco, they had 4 top 10 defenses with the Niners, no top 10 offenses. They were a mess. I don't think they'd had a winning season in 8 years previous to Harbaugh. And he turned that thing around in year 1. Michigan, year 1. Stanford, I think, took a couple of years, but he had some upset wins in the first year. So this is not a big lift. Boy, what a division. Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh. Those are really, really good football coaches. Thinking about Michigan, and I do think it's the right time to leave. The NCAA and sort of the ambiguous punishment, it's never felt fair. It's never felt even-handed. There's a rule book by the NCAA, but it's really fuzzy. During the COVID year, people were just making stuff up during the COVID year. Michigan pretty much just said, this doesn't count. I think he goes down as a complete Harbaugh, as a complete disruptor. He is Uber to taxis in football. He has changed the game immediately. He's disrupted Pete Carroll at USC, Pete Carroll with the Seahawks. The Buckeyes were a dominant team in the Big Ten, and it took him several years to get it right and get the right quarterback. But usually where Jim goes, they don't have the quarterback right. Alex Smith was viewed as sort of a bust when he got to San Francisco. Stanford didn't have Andrew Luck. Michigan had some decent quarterbacks, but it was J.J. McCarthy that was ultimately the big hit for him. He inherits his guy in Justin Herbert. So I think it's going to work. I think it's going to work fast. And the AFC is loaded. But, when you go back and look at where Harbaugh's got, the Pac-12 had Pete Carroll, and San Francisco had a mini Seahawks dynasty. And, everywhere, Jim, and Ohio State and college football was run by Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State and Clemson. Jim finds a way to cut through it, and usually pretty quick. Michigan will get a good football coach. The way it works in college football is if you have a legend and a legend leaves, you usually hiccup for a coach, and then you find the right one after that. A lot of times what you do, and this is just so college football, is a legend leaves and a school feeling loyalty to one of the legend's assistants. They want the continuity of the legend without the legend, so they hire a coordinator from the program, and it's a miss. He doesn't maybe have the gravitas. We've seen this at Bama and Washington. We've seen this throughout the course of college football history, is you hire the popular assistant or somebody connected to the icon who leaves. That's why I like Alabama getting Kalen DeBoer. It's no real connection. Perfect. That's the way to do it. So I think, I don't know who Michigan's going to hire. The Big Ten's never been stronger. 18 of those kids are leaving. Michigan's still a really healthy program and a huge brand, but you're not going to get another Jim Harbaugh. Alabama's not going to get another Nick Saban. They don't exist. And also, you're seeing this. It's just a pain in the ass to recruit in college anymore. You saw at Villanova, Jay Wright had 10 years to coach. He's like, I'm out. I don't want to deal with this transfer portal nonsense. Nick Saban could have coached, still great energy. I'm out. Let's go do television. I think Harbaugh looks at the transfer portal and the NIL, and Jim is very pro pay the players, but right now it just doesn't have enough regulations, and the players, you're spending so much time. You now have 2 different recruiting cycles. It used to be 1 early February. Now there's 2. You've got the transfer portal, you got the NIL. So those 3 elements have changed recruiting drastically over the last decade when Jim took over Michigan. It's just not as much fun. And as Jim gets up there in age, college football and college basketball is a young man's game. Jim's getting up there. Generally, you don't have as much turnover in the pro ranks. You'll have a hot coordinator, but the pension's better for assistant coaches in the NFL, and you can keep a staff together. And Jim's going to build a really strong staff. He'll probably take a couple of defensive guys from Michigan, but this was in the works yesterday. Second interview with the Chargers. I was told very early in the process there was a little divide initially, where a lot of the young staffers were all Harbaugh. They were totally pro Harbaugh. And there were some older people in the organization that may have had Dean Spanos's ear a little bit that, were interested in some, a Ben Johnson type. But the thing about the Chargers is some businesses just need a new boss. Some need a culture changer. Washington Commanders need a culture changer and a coach. The Chargers need a culture changer and a coach. I think Atlanta just needs a coach. I think they have a good owner, Rich McKay, really nice pieces offensively. They just need a quarterback and the right coach. I don't think they're a lousy culture. Washington and the Chargers, just too many missteps. The Staley thing was a bit of a mess. It just feels like they have to kind of right the ship. This LA market's crowded, man. It's a crowded market. People get distracted. If you're not good, people have options. The beach, the mountains, Vegas is a 40-minute flight away. Rams, Dodgers, USC, UCLA, Clippers, Lakers, it's distracted. You got to win. And so I think Harbaugh is going to win his first year. I think he's going to win a lot. I think they're going to be a high-end playoff team immediately. And I can't wait for it. It's the right choice. It's the best job. It's the only great job in this cycle. It's the only one. Washington's not bad, no quarterback. And you got to change that culture. So it's exciting. Harbaugh is such a unique. I was at his first game at Michigan. They played Utah. And he and I had a clunky interview at the other place, and we weren't in the best space. And over time, Jim and I have gotten along much better. And whenever he's at Fox or doing something for the Big Ten, he'll leave me a note. And he's texted me a handful of times. His dad, I think, watches the show. And sometimes Jim will say, "Hey, my dad said I need to text you," and whatever. He's done that 5 or 6 times. And but what I like about both John and Jim Harbaugh, and I've met Jim a couple of times, I like disruptors. I've defended Dana White for years, and people in my space who make people uncomfortable. And I think that's how we all grow. Discomfort is how we all grow. And I think, Sean McVay came into the NFL and said, "I'm not going to play any of my starters in the preseason," and got nothing but shit. People's like, "You're not going to be ready. This is not going to work. You have to hit." They went 8-0 to start the season. And then by the following year, a lot of young coaches said, "Yeah, Sean's right. Why am I starting my stars in the preseason? They don't need to take a snap." And some of the veterans wanted to, but Sean McVay was a real game changer, a real disruptor. Some of the old heads still want to play their starters, but McVay's like, "What's the point? I'm not playing Andrew Whitworth. I don't even want Andrew Whitworth by September to wear pads and anything. Just take the day off and show up on Sunday," right? Like smart players, veteran players who come to the camp in shape. And I think that's what Harbaugh does. It's funny, he's an offensive coach, but all of his teams have shared one quality, and it's not been brilliant offensive play. I mean, hell, Michigan didn't throw the ball down the field. I mean, Michigan looked like, 1988 Michigan, like they didn't throw the ball down the field. It was very much about power running and defense and, special teams and field position. The one thing Jim's teams have all shared is physicality very quickly. People out West know this, but Stanford was so bad when he took them over. It was like they were a Division II program. They're like an FCS. It was like 2 years later, they were just pushing people around. And Harbaugh's been coming out to California and stealing defensive linemen and offensive linemen for years at Michigan. And I think he's very comfortable with the West. He's coached San Francisco, Stanford, San Diego. It's fun out here. I think he likes it. He's intense. I think he's going to fit. It's an exciting day. LA, star coach, star-driven city, star quarterback. Sounds like a movie script. Welcome again to the West Coast, Jim Harbaugh. Can't wait.